So let's talk about how big or small a government should be. It's a real issue, and it's going to become a big issue if you end up with Senator Sanders or Senator Warren as president. Check this out. Leave your comments, ding the bell, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel. You know, I don't know if this is the main narrative of this thing is that Bernie Sanders' campaign had a script where if somebody brought up Elizabeth Warren when you're talking to them on the telephone, there's a telephone script, you should say things like, well, yeah, she does well with, well-educated white people. She's apparently bringing some of them into the party, which is kind of a slap. It's basically saying she's an elitist. And so, the Warren campaign said, hey, let's stop that. Don't do that. And I don't know if the Bernie campaign stopped it or not. I've seen conflicting reports in the media. But then, apparently Elizabeth Warren leaked, or her campaign leaked. I'm guessing this has more to do with campaign managers than the candidates themselves. But who knows? Leaked that in a meeting 2 years ago when Bernie and Elizabeth got together and talked about getting into this race, Bernie had pointed out that Trump was able to weaponize anything. Look at what he did to all those Republicans. And that Trump would be weaponizing gender against any woman who ran. And according to Elizabeth Warren, he said he didn't think, therefore, that a woman could beat Trump. And, she came out and reaffirmed that either late yesterday or this morning, and said she disagrees. She thinks that a woman can beat Trump. I think a woman can beat Trump too. But frankly, this is getting so much play, particularly on CNN. I watched CNN for about an hour this morning while I was marking up the show. And it really surprised me. I guess it shouldn't have surprised me. The debate is going to be on CNN tonight. So, of course, they want to get as many eyeballs as possible. So, anyhow, that's going on. But there's another debate that essentially is happening, and that is about the policies that both Senator Sanders and Senator Warren are proposing. And I saw a piece on this on MSNBC, I believe it was on Morning Joe, and then I saw a guest, two guests, in fact, on CNN this morning talking about this. And in both cases, what they were saying was essentially, oh my God, Bernie and Elizabeth Warren want to spend more money. The guy on CNN said, they want to double the size of the federal government. Well, it depends on how you define size, all right? Employees, money spent, I don't know. But yeah, I mean, not double, that's hyperbole. But the simple reality is that right now in the United States, federal spending is about a third of GDP. It's 35% of GDP. So you get the entire size of the economy, about a third of that is federal spending. And, of course, a big chunk of that is the Pentagon. But a big chunk of that is also Medicare and Social Security, which is, why the banksters in New York want it privatized so badly. But if you look at the European Union, and this is the entire EU, right, all 20 high, 30 low, roughly 30 countries in the European Union. I'm sorry, I don't have that number right off the top of my head, but bottom line, a number of those countries, like Turkey, do not invest heavily in their public sector. And other countries like Denmark invest very heavily in their public sector. So this is an average across the EU. And it's 46%, or nearly half. 46% of GDP is government spending. Now, what accounts for the difference? Yes, about half of all spending in Denmark, probably a little more than half, is government spending. So what accounts for that? Well, people never get a medical bill. Last year in the United States, 634,000 people filed for bankruptcy because somebody got sick. About half of all bankruptcies in this country. We have, and and it's not always just a physical illness. There's also mental illness. There's also, crises that have to do with people's teeth or their vision, which are generally not covered by our insurance policies or Medicare or Medicaid here in the United States. Those are all covered in most of the European countries. So basically, people don't live in fear of getting sick. Is that worth having your government be a little larger? Assuming that you think that that's some kind of an evil to begin with. I'm not buying that because, frankly, quality of life in Denmark or Germany or, pick your country, quality of life is better than here. The work hours are shorter or fewer than here. The standard of living is higher than here. They don't have deep levels of poverty. You don't see homelessness. You don't see people declaring bankruptcy. I mean, 634,000 people declared bankruptcy in the United States because somebody got sick. How many declared bankruptcy in Denmark? 0. Germany, 0. France, 0. I mean, pick your European country, 0. So that's health care. Then also in all those countries, in Denmark, for example, you get paid according to an email that I got from somebody who's apparently Danish. You get paid $900 a month to go to school, plus your tuition is free. But they pay for books and for the cost of living and everything. Right? We could do that here. It would just mean that government spending would be a larger share of GDP. And it's going to be real interesting to see how this plays out tonight, because basically on that stage tonight, and this is the biggest difference between the two sides. You have on one side Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, who are saying, yes, government spending should go up dramatically to pay for college for everybody and to pay for health care for everybody. And then you've got a few other people on that stage, Amy Klobuchar, Joe Biden, Pete Buttigieg, and Tom Steyer, who are all saying, no, government spending should not go up dramatically. We can figure out how to muddle through and reduce the number of people who commit suicide in the United States because, economically they're shattered because somebody got sick, and reduce the number of people who have to declare bankruptcy from 600,000 down to maybe 300,000. But these, and the wealth tax, we now see, 57% of Americans are in favor of a wealth tax, which is how Bernie and Warren, Liz Warren, want to pay for this in large part, rather than taking it out of your pocket. Take it out of the pocket of Tom Steyer. It'll be interesting to see what he has to say about this, too. But, the other thing in Europe they have, or in Denmark anyway, 2 years of unemployment insurance. The Republicans, we used to have 2 years of unemployment insurance. The Republicans did away with it during the Bush administration. They cut it down to a year. Trump has cut it down to 6 months. Federally supported long-term unemployment insurance. So you don't lose your home in most European countries if you lose your job. And you have in the United States right now this epidemic of what are called the diseases of despair. These numbers, over the last 3 years, these numbers have all gone up, not down. Deaths from suicide, deaths from alcoholism, deaths from drug abuse, and deaths from gunshot. They've all gone up in the 3 years since Trump has been in office. As our society gets more brutal and more rough and more, whatever you want to call it. So, what are you expecting tonight, and how do you think this is going to play out? And do you think that most Americans actually would like to see the United States become more like Germany or Sweden or France? Or do you think most Americans are really and truly terrified of that? That they just, oh my God, we can't have that. Really? Have government half of spending is government spending. But life is good. See, government is the way that we take care of each other. That's the whole point of it. Right? Government is simply an institutionalized version, essentially, of family. Shouldn't we be taking care of each other?